Hey Raider Nation, it's your girl, back again with another exciting video. Today's one is extra special because it's something I've been wanting to dive into for a while. It took a bit of time to prepare, but I'm finally ready. By the time you're watching this, I should be in New Orleans for Media Row, gathering a ton of awesome content. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications if you haven't already. I've got daily Raider content and tons of cool stuff coming your way. Now let's dive into today's topic. I want to break down the different stages of the offseason and share what I'd do if I were the one calling the shots as the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll keep it realistic, considering things like our current coaching staff and coordinators. I'm not going to make any wild, unrealistic moves or throw all the money we have around. But I do know the Raiders are sitting with somewhere between $95 million and $100 million in cap space this offseason. Of course, some of that will go toward re-signing our free agents, especially since we've got a lot of key players coming up. Before we start making any moves, though, let's talk about the Raiders' team needs as of right now. The most urgent need? The quarterback position. This is one of the most crucial areas for the team moving forward. Clearly, AOC isn't the long-term solution, and we need to address this as soon as possible. The quarterback position is still a huge need for the Raiders, and honestly, I don't think Garner Minshew is going to be the answer. In fact, there are several positions that require attention, starting with running back and a true number one wide receiver. The offensive line could definitely use some upgrades, especially at guard and right tackle. On defense, we're looking at adding depth in the edge rush, defensive line, linebacker, and both safety positions. Heck, even a backup quarterback should be on the list. In short, we need a bit of help across the board. But the good news is, it's not impossible for this team to make a significant turnaround if we make the right moves. When we look at our current roster, we have a mix of players who could be key contributors moving forward. Some of the bigger names include linebacker Robert Spain, tight end Harrison Bryant, cornerbacks Trayvon Merck and Con Chason, as well as players like John Jenkins, Malcolm Coons, and Nate Hobbs. There are also some free agents that are worth considering, like Cody Whitehair, Alexander Madison, and Isaiah Poe. While there are probably a few more names to mention, these are some of the most important players to focus on. Now, there are a few guys I'd definitely bring back. First off, linebacker Robert Spain. He's been a standout for us over the past couple of years, and it's crucial we keep him around. I'm also bringing back Trayvon Merck. Yes, he's going to be one of the more sought-after free agents, especially in the secondary, but I believe in sticking with the guys we've developed here in Vegas. I know players like Javon Holland might be out there, but I'd rather stick with the talent we've brought in. I'd also re-sign edge rusher Con Chason and defensive end Malcolm Coons, even though he missed all of last season. Keeping as much homegrown talent as possible should be a priority. The goal is to keep this team's core strong and build from within. With that being said, I'm bringing back a few key players: Nate Hobbs, Isaiah Poe, Adam Butler, and Amir Abdullah. Hobbs and Poe have shown they're valuable pieces, and Butler really stepped up last season, especially when Christian Wilkins went down. Amir Abdullah, while not a star, gives us a solid option for special teams and third down situations, so I'd bring him back as well. As for the rest, Harrison Bryant, John Jenkins, Andres Pete, Cody Whitehair, Divine Diablo, Alexander Madison, Jarris Robinson, and Marcus E.P., I'd let them walk. I know some fans, especially with Marcus and Divine, might want to keep them, but I believe we can find better talent elsewhere, either through free agency or the draft. Moving on to some tougher decisions, I'd be making a few cuts and trades. First up, quarterback Garner Minshew. I don't think his time in Las Vegas really worked out. He didn't have much to work with, and honestly, he didn't impress me. I think he'd be better suited as a veteran backup elsewhere, so I'd cut him after June 1st. I'd also cut quarterback Carter Bradley and running back Zamir White. White hasn't really shown much for us, and I feel like we could improve our running back depth through the draft or free agency. One player I'd consider putting on the trade block is Michael Mayer. Don't get me wrong, he's a solid player, but if we could get some value in return, like a third-round pick, I'd be open to it. Or if he could help us move up in the draft to land a more impactful player, I'd be open to that as well. Now, let's talk about free agency. There's going to be a ton of options out there for the Raiders to explore, so we'll have to be strategic in our approach. The goal is to bring in players who can make an immediate impact and help turn this team around. Let's dive right into the quarterback position because, as we all know, this is a major need for the Raiders. I've mentioned it before, and I'll say it again. I'm bringing back Marcus Mariota on a veteran minimum deal. He'd be a great fit back in Las Vegas, reuniting with Chip Kelly and Greg Olson. At a cheap cost, he could serve as a solid backup while also mentoring the future quarterback we bring in. He's experienced, reliable, and familiar with the system, making him a perfect fit for the role. On a more ambitious note, my top choice at quarterback in free agency is Justin Fields. I see so much untapped potential in him, especially under Chip Kelly's offense. He's still young, and the sky's the limit. Fields could be a game changer for the Raiders and would fit perfectly in our system, given his skill set and ability to develop into a top-tier QB. As an honorable mention, I'd also consider Trey Lance. He's a high-risk, high-reward type of move, but I think he still has a lot of potential that we could tap into. His deal would likely be on the cheaper side, making him a low-cost option with a lot of upside. If we don't land Fields or Mariota, Lance could be a name to keep an eye on. Next, let's talk about the running back position, which is another area where we need serious help. The guy I'd target is Aaron Jones, the #1 running back in free agency right now. He's been a consistent 1,000-yard rusher wherever he's been, and he brings a lot of value in the passing game as well. He's the type of back who can come in and immediately make an impact as our #1 running back, helping balance the offense. An honorable mention here would be A.J. Dillon, who could also be a solid addition, but Aaron Jones is my top priority. Moving on to the wide receiver position, this is going to be huge for our offense, and we need to make sure we bring in the right talent. Everyone's been talking about T. Higgins. When it comes to the wide receiver position, I know there are a lot of options out there, but I'm going with a guy who brings both experience and familiarity with our new GM, John Spike. I'm bringing Chris Godwin to Las Vegas. Yes, it's going to be a bit of an investment, and I know he's coming off an injury, but when healthy, Godwin has the potential to be a borderline wide receiver one. He's a veteran presence who could provide a great pairing with Jacoby Myers and the younger wide receivers we have on the roster. It's not a move that locks us in completely at wide receiver, but it's definitely a step in the right direction for this offense. Moving on to the offensive line, which is another area that needs serious attention. I'm bringing in one guard and one offensive tackle, primarily for the right side of the line. The guard I have my eye on is Trey Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's young, talented, and could come in and be a plug-and-play starter right away. This is a position of need, and with all the cap space we have, it's an area where I wouldn't mind spending to improve the unit. Trey Smith would be a solid addition, and James Daniels is another option I'd consider as an honorable mention. For the right tackle position, I know Colton Miller's getting up there in age, and we'll have several options to explore. But one guy I'm really focused on is Morgan Moses. He's a veteran with a lot of experience, and I think he could come in on a 1 or 2 year deal to provide solid play on the right side of the line. His leadership and consistency would be a great fit for what we're trying to build. Now, let's shift to the defensive side of the ball. When it comes to defensive tackle, we've already brought back Adam Butler, and Christian Wilkins will be returning as well. So, I'm not making any big moves here, but I would look to bring in a veteran like Calais Campbell. He's a bit older, but he can still get the job done, and his price would be much more affordable compared to some of the bigger names out there. He'd be a solid, experienced piece to help strengthen our defensive front. At the edge position, I'm not going all in on a big name just yet because I feel good about what we have with Leon Chasen and Malcolm Coons, especially since we've brought those guys back. That said, there are a couple of honorable mentions that I would consider if we're looking to add more depth. Josh Sweat from Philadelphia is a name I'd keep an eye on. And of course, there's Khalil Mack. We all know what Mack can do, and I'd love to see him back in silver and black, even if he's a little older now. Moving to the linebacker position, which is another major need, the top guy I'm targeting is Bobby Wagner. Yes, he's up there in age, but this guy still plays at a very high level. He's got a ton of experience, including time with Pete Carroll, and everywhere he's gone, he's excelled. Even with his age, he's been playing like he's still in his prime. As we saw with his performance for the Commanders last season, he'd be a fantastic addition to our linebacker core. Another name I'd look at, even though he's going to be costly, is Nick Bolton from the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only would he strengthen our defense, but adding him would also hurt a rival team, which is always a win in my book. I'm all in for Nick Bolton, and I'd love to see him join the Raiders. He'd be an incredible asset to our linebacker group. Now let's talk about the cornerback room. There's a lot of talent out there, both young and veteran, that could help strengthen our defense. We already have solid guys like Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs on the roster, but I'm looking to add another top-tier corner, and that player is Charvarius Ward. I think he'd come in and immediately become the CB1 for this defense. He has the experience and ability to lock down the opposing team's top receiver, which is exactly what we need. With that, we've covered the major free agent targets, but I'm sure there are other players you'd like to see the Raiders go after. There are safeties like Talanoa Hufanga and Javon Holland, who are big names, but with the return of Isaiah Poe and Trayvon Merck, I think we're in good shape at safety for now. Now, let's shift gears to the draft. I'm looking at addressing some of the needs we haven't tackled yet in free agency. I'm going to run a 5-round mock draft, focusing on filling key spots on the team that need attention. We're not going for guys like Cam Ward or Shedder Sanders. Those names probably won't be available for us. We've already addressed the running back and wide receiver positions with our free agent signings. So now, I'm looking at other areas that need attention. We could go with someone like Mason Graham, TJ McMillan, or Will Johnson to solidify our quarterback room or bolster other key areas on defense. This is going to be a tough choice between T-Mac and Will Johnson, but after thinking it over, I think, all right, let's keep the momentum going. For our first pick, I'm going with T-Mac. He's going to be a great addition to our receiving core alongside Chris Godwin and Jacoby Myers, giving us that solid wide receiver one we've been looking for. I think it's the perfect start to strengthening the offense. Next, I'm eyeing Jedi Barron, a versatile DB who can do it all. If he's still available, I'm snagging him to add some flexibility to our secondary. He could be a real playmaker for us, so I feel good about that pick. Then, we're going to focus on the edge position, and I'm taking Jack Sawyer. He's got the talent to come in and contribute right away, providing depth and competition at the edge rusher position. But I'm not stopping there. I'm also grabbing Will Howard. I wasn't too high on him at first, but with Chip Kelly coming in, there's a real opportunity for him to develop into a solid future QB for the Raiders. With Justin Fields already in the mix, we don't need to reach for a top QB, so taking a chance on Will Howard is a move I'm willing to make. So far, we've got T-Mac, Jedi Barron, Jack Sawyer, and Will Howard, 4 solid picks that address key needs. Now, moving on to the linebacker position, I'm grabbing Jeffrey Bassa. We need depth at linebacker, and Bassa's a great pickup to help round out that group. We've been building depth across the roster, and this pick continues that trend. Looking ahead, running back may not be a priority right now, but I'm keeping an eye on potential gems in later rounds. Things are shaping up nicely. Now, moving on to the 5th round. If my guy is still available, I'm definitely taking him. That guy is Devin Neal, a running back I absolutely love in this draft. He could be a fantastic change of pace back and potentially a future starter for the team. I think he's exactly what we need in the backfield. So here's the recap of my picks. In the first round, I took T-Mac, followed by Jedi Barron in the second, and in the third, I grabbed Jack Sawyer and Will Howard. We solidified our edge, secured a future QB, and built depth in the linebacker group with Jeffrey Bassa. Finally, in the 5th, I'd love to snag Devin Neal as a future running back. Raider Nation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about this offseason so far? Is there anything you would change or any players you would add? And what grade would you give this whole plan? Looking at the roster right now, we've got a solid quarterback room with Marcus Mariota, Justin Fields, Will Howard, and AOC. In the running back room, we've got Aaron Jones, Devin Neal, and Amir Abdullah. At wide receiver, Chris Godwin, T-Mac, Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker are ready to make an impact. The rest of the roster is shaping up well too. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this team could make the playoffs next year? I'm excited to see what you guys think. Until next time.